Good morning. This is RCB News, and I am Ryan Bowling. I want to get right down to the news at hand. I'm going to be reading an article from the Epoch Times. Of course, you know my favorite news source, and it is entitled Hundreds of Americans Still in Afghanistan After Last Military Flight. I'm going to read a portion of this, and I'm going to give my own spin and opinion on this after I read it. Says the Pentagon has admitted that hundreds of Americans seeking evacuation have been left in Afghanistan after the last U.S. military plane departed Afghanistan's Hamid Karzai International Airport a few hours before dawn. I may or may not have pronounced that right, but forgive me for that. In announcing that the United States has officially ended its military presence in Afghanistan hours before President Joe Biden August 31st deadline, U.S. Central Command head General Frank McKenzie said that there are still Americans who remain in Afghanistan in, quote, the low hundreds, end quote. He made the remarks during a televised address in response to a reporter's question, adding that the military and State Department will work to evacuate those individuals. There's a lot of heartbreak associated with this departure. We did not get everybody out that we wanted to get out, said McKenzie, adding that it is a tough situation. The head of U.S. Central Command added that he believed if U.S. troops remained in Afghanistan for a further 10 days, we wouldn't have gotten everybody out, and there still would have been people who would have been disappointed. Earlier this month, Biden vowed to keep U.S. troops in the country until all Americans who wish to leave have been evacuated. And that's all I'm going to read in that portion right there. You all can go to the description box below and click on to that source if you like. But my comment is simply this, and I think I mentioned this in a previous video about the fact, number one, we shouldn't even be over there. But that's not really what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is the fact in my mind that this is all planned. And what I mean by this is all planned, nobody in their right mind, unless they just crazy and don't have no kind of cognitive abilities or anything, nobody in their right mind would leave all these weapons, guns, helicopters, and all the rest for these terrorists to come in and take over. Nobody in their right mind would do that. It seems like nobody's talking about that. Do anyone even see what I believe, in my opinion, is going on? Why would you abruptly start pulling a lot of our people, a lot of our troops out of there, or make the declaration to pull our troops out of there, and then leave all these weapons and guns and helicopters and so forth in the country that you know harbors terrorists? It makes no sense to me other than the fact that, in my opinion, it may be something that's planned. And one might ask, well, why would they plan something like that? To keep the war going on, to keep the war machine going on, to keep them, because war is money. You may ask, well, how is war money? People dying, people getting killed. Because the people buy these weapons. They buy the tanks, they buy the guns and so forth from the gun manufacturers, from the manufacturers to make the guns, from the manufacturers to make the tanks and all the weapons. Those weapons cost hundreds of millions of dollars. So the corporations make billions off of these, and the international banking families that have investments in these, that own stocks in these companies rather, are making tons of money. So it's all about, on one side, it's all about money. It's all about making a profit. And see, and I'm not trying to be a preacher, but let's face it, the Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil. And what that simply means is, it's not saying money is evil. Come on, now be realistic. It's not saying money is evil. It's saying the love of money is the root of all evil. Notice what it said in the second portion. The love of money is the root of all evil. Now, what is the root right now? What evil rather is what Biden doing? What a lot of people believe Biden is doing, including myself. What is the root of this evil? It's money. It's the love of money. And the evil is, people losing their lives. You see all these people losing their lives. Why are all these people losing their lives like this? What's going on here? Why people, don't they care? No, they care more about the money. They care more about the money than they do human lives. So that's just my opinion. It's just a love of money. And also, on a secondary basis, it could also be the attempt to create a global one world government, global one world religion, and global economic system. But that's a whole nother story and a whole nother video. You know, that deals more or less with you can merge religion with that, but that's a whole nother video. That's not what this video or this channel is even about. But you know, it's a shame to see this type of stuff happening by our own political leaders on both the right and the left. Now, I mention the right because some on the right, or the so-called Republicans, are supporting this type of stuff as well. They're not saying no. They're not saying anything. Many of them aren't saying anything for the most part. They're not pushing against this, or at least a majority of them are not. And it angers me when we put these people in office and then see the things that they do. It's a shame. But for those of you that are Christians, we need to continue to pray for our country. We need to continue to tell people that, you know, hey, look, man, this is the end of days, man. You better get yourself right with God. That's one of the things we need to do. But for those of us, this includes all of us, Christians, non-Christians, doesn't matter. What we need to do is to continue to expose what these people are doing. Continue to expose the lies that the mainstream media is pushing out there. Because like I said before, you know, mainstream media don't tell you everything. It's not always what you say. It's what you don't say. It's what you don't cover. You think about the way a vast majority of people are in our country. The way they act, the way they think. I mean, their whole attitude about, it's just crazy. As a matter of fact, I wanted to read a quote from you from a very famous individual. Hold on one second here. Okay. This is from a book written by Mark Dice. It's called The True Story of Fake News. Okay, The True Story of Fake News. And I want to read a section in this particular book in reference to a man by the name of Edward Bernay. Edward Bernay, rather. Edward Bernay. He wrote a book in the 1920s, all the way back in the 1920s, called Propaganda. All the way back in the 1920s, called Propaganda. So propaganda has been going on for a long time. Like, really? So I'm going to read this section. And these are Mark Dice wrote down the quotes of Edward Bernay's book, Propaganda. Wrote down his very words. This man, by the way, to sum it up, this man, Edward Bernay, was and is considered by many to be the father of propaganda. And he was a master at psychology and understanding how people think. And this is what this man said. Those who manipulate the unseen mechanisms, and this is from his book, Propaganda. So Mark Dice is quoting the very words of Edward Bernay in his book, Propaganda. It says, those who manipulate the unseen mechanisms of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. We are governed, our minds are molded, our tastes formed, our ideas suggested largely by men we have never heard of. In almost every act of our lives, whether in the sphere of politics, there we go, or business, in our social conduct, or our ethnical thinking, we are dominated by the relatively small number of persons who understand the mental processes and social patterns of the masses. So here, Edward Bernay is right up the money. He's telling us that the people that the ones in leadership positions, they know how we think. They know how we think. He goes on to say, it is they who pull the wires that control the public mind, who harness old social forces and contrive new ways to bind and guide the world. He goes on to say, whatever of social importance is done today, and this is crazy. This is crazy. This was back in the 1920s when this man wrote this. But listen, he says, whatever of social importance is done today, whether in politics, finance, manufacture, agriculture, charity, education, or other fields, must be done with the help of propaganda. See, we've been played, y'all. Propaganda is the executive arm of the invisible government. This invisible government, he says, tends to be concentrated in the hands of the few because of the expense of manipulating the social machinery which controls the opinions and habits of the masses. So here, right here, but what I like the other portion we talked about, we are governed, our minds are molded, our tastes formed, our ideas suggested largely by men we have never heard of. That's what I want you to focus on right there. Where Edward Bernay, the man considered to be the father of propaganda all the way back in the 1920s, said these things. And he said these words, we are governed and our minds are molded, our tastes formed, our ideas suggested largely by men we have never heard of. So think about that. The stuff that we see, the average person, now most of you that watch this channel and watch other channels, YouTube channels, most of you guys are in the know. But you think about the hundreds of thousands and millions of people that watch the mainstream news. They go to our schools, you know, the public schools and the educational institutions and so forth. Think about what they think and what they believe. Why is it that a vast majority rather of people believe what they believe in terms of liberal ideas and things that are clearly just doesn't make sense? Why do they believe that? Why do they believe in transgenderism? Why would a regular person believe that men and women are the same biologically? They're not. But the only way you could believe something like that as a regular person or regular normie, as one YouTuber says, is that someone is making impressions on your belief system on a consistent basis. Nobody in their right mind will believe something as retarded as that. That's crazy. It's obvious. It's clear. And my point is that we're being manipulated. That's why a lot of these mainstream media outlets are fighting the internet, are fighting people on the internet, trying to take control of the internet and so forth, because a lot of people, from the last sources I read, a lot of people that were watching mainstream media sources are starting to convert over to alternative news sources, which mostly is on the internet. Now, I admit all internet, news sources aren't the best, but let's be realistic. You can't really say that unless you watch some of them. You can't really make that judgment. So my whole point is to say that, listen, man, we got to be more discerning. We got to mix things up. We can't just if you just listen. You heard what this man said here, and Mark Dice wrote down his exact quotes from his book written in the 1920s called Propaganda. I believe it was 1928, called Propaganda. So a lot of this stuff that we're watching, man, and we're hearing on the mainstream, there's a lot of propaganda. There's the design to control our minds, to get us to think a certain way so that we can embrace a certain ideology that is on the horizon. But those of us who've been blessed with free minds, we have to continue to have free minds. And that's all I want to say about that. But if you guys like this video, press the like button, make your comments known, share this video, and subscribe. God bless you, and have a great day. See you again on RCB News.